So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC Fight Night, Ailin versus Craig. But before I do get into my predictions, you may notice that the background of my face cam area is a little bit different. And it is because I have moved houses again. I'm going to be living in a different flat for my next year of university. And yes, my exams are over. My exam period is all over. So now I've got quite a bit of free time to come up with some good video ideas and execute them and make quite a few videos. And I think I probably will be making quite a few videos over the next week or so. I've got a few ideas that I'm looking forward to making and putting out. So stay tuned to my channel for those. But before we do get into my picks again, I do have the We Want Picks 3-day free trial where you get signed up for lots of things at this point. Now We Want Picks has like 6 people on board, like me giving my articles and giving some picks, as well as many other people as well giving their opinions. You also get a lot of tools to make your own bets, a DraftKings optimizer as well. Just a really good setup there, and you can get it for 3 days for free. Cancel at any time, and you can cancel during that 3-day period as well. And then you've also got my sign up for BetUS and BetOnline in the description below. Sign up using my link and you will get some pretty good deposit bonuses. And now let's get into the first fight of the night. This is going to be, in my opinion, it's got potential to be a really good fight, but the odds in my opinion are a bit wide. Now Lucas Alexander versus Jeka Saragih, short notice fight. Lucas Alexander is replacing Jesse Butler, and I thought Jesse Butler was probably going to lose to Jeka Saragih. It would have been a pretty bad stylistic matchup for Jeka, as he is primarily a striker and doesn't really have anything off his back. But as for Jeka, man, like I thought that he was going to be able to knock out Butler. Now he's taking on Lucas Alexander, who, to be fair, I'm still not entirely sure how good Lucas Alexander really is, to be honest with you, because he looked really, really good against Steven Peterson, but Steven Peterson come out and said that he hadn't been training for that fight, which was just really weird, to be honest. And he did look a little bit out of shape as to the Steven Peterson we've seen in the past. He lost on short notice to Joanderson Brito, but that happens. You know, I'm not going to take anything away from him there. So in truth, I don't really know how high to truly rate Lucas Alexander, because I'm not still super sold on him. But one thing I will say is I'm not very sold on Jeka Saragih either. I think Jeka Saragih is actually going to be a pretty big star for the UFC because he's the only, and I believe the first, Indonesian fighter to fight for the UFC. And there is a pretty big fan base in Indonesia, and it is a rapidly growing sport in Indonesia, as they have, I believe, yes they do, they have a One Pride MMA promotion, which is pretty big over there. A lot of good fighters are coming up and out of there, but in my opinion, I think it's a little bit too soon for Jeka Saragih to get signed to the UFC. He came in on that road to UFC tournament, looked pretty good, lost to Angel Jubilee where he got dominated in the grappling. I think that the UFC is honestly doing a little bit of a disservice to Jeka by signing him to the UFC so early, because I do believe that Indonesia does need someone to represent them in the UFC, but I don't know how good Jeka Saragih really is. I mean, the odds on this fight are super wide. I mean, you've got Lucas Alexander minus 300, Jeka Saragih plus 250. I'm picking Lucas Alexander to win, but I'm telling you guys, I'm not minus 300 confident. This is a low confidence pick. Just still not completely sold on Alexander. If he goes out there, dominates Jeka on the feet, then I will be sold, but I'm just going to go with Lucas Alexander for now in this fight. Low confidence pick, still not really too sure how good he really is, and Jeka is going down to 145 for the first time in his career. Now we've got Charles Johnson taking on Rafael Estevam. I mean, I think Charles Johnson's pretty good. I think Rafael Estevam's a little bit better, to be honest with you. I think Charles Johnson's really good, and I think he's really underrated as well. I mean, he showed really, really good defensive wrestling against Muhammad Mokaev. Now, yes, in that fight, Muhammad Mokaev was able to take him down a lot of times. He was able to hold Charles Johnson against the cage for a long period of time as well. But Johnson always got up, and he did defend the takedowns and defend the grappling quite well. And, you know, he's got a couple good wins as well in his career. I mean, he took on Ode Osborne. That was a very close fight. Knocked out Jimmy Flick. Beat Jalgas, which is a fight he probably could have lost, to be honest. But at the end of the day, Charles Johnson's, he's having good fights at 125. He's having good fights with good fighters at 125. And he's having competitive fights with good guys at 125. Rafael Estevam's going to be making his debut. He's had a couple of cancelled fights since he did win on Dana White's Contender Series, where I thought he looked really slick in the grappling against Joe Elias, and he did eventually get that finish in the second round. that is kind of Rafael Estevam's game. He is a grappler. He does train at Nova now, so he has been training with Jose Aldo. I don't know why his name slipped. It is almost 2 a.m. at the moment as I record it. But yeah, he's been training with Jose Aldo in the past. I mean, he's getting good training in there, obviously, at Nova now. But the problem is, can Rafael Estevam get the fight down to the ground? Because I think that Charles Johnson's the better striker than Rafael Estevam. But if you think that he can get the fight down to the ground, then I think Estevam is your pick. I am going to go with Rafael Estevam. The problem is I'm not that confident he gets the fight down to the ground, as I do believe Charles Johnson does have good takedown defense, and I do believe he does have the better striking. So I'm going to pick Estevam. He is a very slight favourite. In fact, the odds are almost even on this one here. Charles Johnson is plus 100 on one sportsbook right now, but very close fight. I'm going to go with Estevam. Low confidence, but I do believe he can get it done in this matchup here. Now we've got Chad Anheliger taking on Jose Johnson. This fight could be really fun. I mean, in my opinion, Jose Johnson's a really fun fighter. He is 6 foot tall for 135 pounds. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. He's got a Muay Thai style as well. He's got crazy power in his hands as well. He just didn't really get to show it off against Damon Blackshear. But we've kind of learned that Damon Blackshear is actually quite good, isn't he? You know, he beat one by Twister, and I think he took on a short notice fight and then won that one as well. But Jose Johnson took on Damon on short notice in that fight, and he did lose by Twister submission. A pretty rough loss to have, but at the end of the day, Jose Johnson isn't a grappler, man. He is a Muay Thai fighter. If you watch this fight against Jack Cartwright on the Contender Series, though, there's a surprising amount of wrestling and grappling in that one there. But Johnson, he's a striker. He's a Muay Thai guy. Very good Muay Thai striker at 135. In fact, I will say he's the better striker in this matchup. He's going to be much taller. He's going to have a much longer reach advantage as well. And I do believe that Chad Anheliger is going to have to look to use the wrestling in this fight. But I think that Jose Johnson, he should be able to defend the takedowns of Chad Anheliger, right? So I'm going to go with Jose Johnson. I'm going to go with Jose Johnson by knockout in this matchup as well. I do believe he's going to be the good enough striker and a powerful enough striker to land. And if you do look at the odds here in this matchup, if I can find them somewhere, I believe that Johnson is a slight favourite. He is a pretty wide favourite, wider than I expected. He's about minus 200. Chad Anheliger is about plus 170 when it comes down to those betting odds. Now we've got Jonathan Pearce taking on Joanderson Brito. Honestly, a bad stylistic matchup for both guys, if that makes any sense. Because Jonathan Pearce, a dominant wrestler, his striking's not that great, but he really likes to be constantly going forward, and he doesn't really like it when you pressure him. Joanderson Brito is that guy that's going to be moving forward and is going to be pressuring, and he is going to be throwing some heavy leather, man, when the fight is on the feet, and absolutely does have the power to knock out Jonathan Pearce. But I do believe that Jonathan Pearce is going to get the wrestling going pretty early and the grappling going pretty early, and he should be able to out-wrestle and out-grapple Joanderson Brito in this matchup here. He's also massive for 145. Jonathan Pearce is also one of those guys that the UFC has been having kind of pop in and out of that number 15 spot. For a long time, Jonathan Pearce and Alex Caceres and someone else were kind of rotating through that number 15 spot in the rankings. So whoever wins this fight will get a ranked opponent. Maybe it's Anheliger, since Joanderson Brito seems so hell-bent on fighting against Anheliger. If Brito beats Pearce, he probably gets that Anheliger fight. I'm going to go Jonathan Pearce, though. I think it's a better matchup for him than it is for Brito. Like, Brito, absolute madman on the feet. He loves to push forward, but the one time he lost in the UFC was against Bill Algeo, and that was because Bill Algeo was the one pushing forward and pressuring forward against him. I think JSP can do that. I think JSP can get the takedowns. I think he can get the grappling going. So give me Jonathan Pearce to get it done. Very slight favourite. He is minus 150. Joanderson Brito is about plus 120, plus 130 in the matchup. Now we've got Mick Parkin taking on Caio Machado. Caio Machado, a little bit of a disappointing performance on Dana White's Contender Series, but to be honest with you, I was more disappointed in Kevin Cesar. That was an embarrassing performance. Not only did Kevin Cesar embarrass himself, he embarrassed me, because I picked Kevin Cesar in that matchup, and I said he's a good boxer. What did Kevin Cesar do in that fight? Absolutely nothing. He just followed around Caio Machado while Caio Machado was just whipping absolute bombs trying to take his head off, man. Honestly, An incredibly frustrating fight to watch. An incredibly embarrassing performance for Kevin, for me, and for him. Caio Machado won that fight. But the thing about Caio, man, I'm still not that sold on him as a heavyweight prospect. Because if you watch his regional fights, he's not that impressive, man. Like, he swings with mad power. But you've got to look at the guys that he's fighting. Lee Main was 50 years old when he fought him, and he's fought him twice. Edison Lopez was 45 years old, and he beat him in round 1. And he beat Chris Larson, who honestly is the best win of his career aside from Kevin Cesar. And Chris Larson was a pretty capable heavyweight. He was just a really massive dude, though, to be fair. But aside from that, man, he's just beating up old men. It's madness. And the thing about Caio, man, he just does not have technical striking at all. He's more of a grappler. We didn't see a lot of it against Kevin. Mick Parkin in his debut against Jamal Pokes looked like a very capable heavyweight. I thought that he looked pretty good. He looked like a guy that does have potential. He looked like he had pretty good technique for a heavyweight as well, to be honest. He looked better than he did against Neves. And if he is improving constantly, he can beat Caio Machado. He should beat Caio Machado. If we look at the odds, I mean, Mick Parkin is picked to beat Caio Machado, minus 350. I think Mick Parkin should be able to get a finish here in the 3rd round. Machado's cardio didn't seem that great. It didn't look that good on Dana White's Contender Series. I don't think it's that good in general, to be honest with you. I think Mick Parkin gets a late finish in round 3 over a gassed out Caio Machado. Not a one-punch KO, just a finish over a very gassed opponent in that fight. Now we can move on to Lucie Pudilova versus Ailin Perez. Honestly, women's MMA, I just can't pick it. I think I went 0-2 on the women's fights because I picked Ricci and Dern for UFC 295. I just can't pick women's fights, man. I don't know what it is about it, but I am going to be going with Ailin Perez. So maybe I've just given Lucie Pudilova a win and saved her career, potentially. But I'm going to go with Ailin Perez in this fight. I mean, I know that when she won against Ashley Evans-Smith, but she dominated Ashley Evans-Smith. And Ashley Evans-Smith, to be honest, looked terrible in that fight, I'll be honest with you. So I probably shouldn't really use that too much for a reason. But in this fight, it is going to be wrestler versus wrestler. And I think Ailin Perez is the more aggressive wrestler. So I think that she's going to be the one that's going to be getting the takedowns and ending up on top. Which is why I'm picking her to win this fight. I mean, it's just women's MMA, man. I just can't pick it. But I think I just don't know. The thing about Lucie Pudilova is she just doesn't really impress me that much. I mean, she lost to an amateur in an exhibition fight relatively recently. And that amateur did end up signing to the UFC. She lost to Teresa Blader in 2020. Teresa Blader was an amateur at the time. And then she went on a little bit of a win streak to get back into the UFC. But I don't know, man. I'm just not that sold. So I'm going to be going with Ailin Perez to win. I'm not that sold on her either. I don't know. I'm just going to move on before I make myself look silly. Ailin Perez is the pick, and now we can move on to Nikolas Motta versus Trey Ogden. What a matchup, man. This is going to be a really hard fight to pick. You've got Nikolas Motta, who's an aggressive guy with crazy power on the feet, and Trey Ogden, who managed to outstrike Daniel Zellhuber for 3 rounds and beat him soundly. And then lost to Ignacio Bahamondes. But Ignacio Bahamondes is a good fighter. And honestly, that fight was a little bit too close for comfort, to be honest with you. Like, yes, Ignacio did win, but Trey Ogden, for a grappler, because that's what Trey Ogden is. He is a grappler. He's got a black belt in BJJ. And that's kind of what he goes to, is his grappling. Ogden's striking looks pretty good. So, do you trust Nikolas Motta to go out there as a relatively small guy for lightweight, to go forward and land those bombs to knock out Trey Ogden? Because if you look at Nikolas Motta, he KO'd Cameron Van Camp, but we learned that Cameron Van Camp maybe just wasn't the best fighter in the world, unfortunately. And then he lost to Manuel Torres in a brutal KO loss. Like, that was unreal. So it kind of comes down to that. I'm going to go Trey Ogden, though. Very low confidence pick. I think he can mix it up on the feet and a little bit on the ground. He's the underdog. I'm surprised. I hadn't actually seen the odds for this fight. I just realized. Plus 120, Trey Ogden. Minus 140, Nikolas Motta. I mean, I can't believe I'm picking a 34-year-old Trey Ogden, but I think you can get it done over Motta, man. Motta's fun. He's cool, but I'm not that sold on him yet. He lost to Jim Miller in his debut. Got knocked out by Jim Miller. Got knocked out by Manuel Torres. I don't think Trey Ogden has that much power. I don't think Trey Ogden actually has many KO wins in his career. He's got no KO wins in his career. I don't think Ogden knocks him out. I think Ogden wins by decision. Turns out most of Tapology does as well. Okay, good picks. Now we move on. Cesar Almeida taking on Christian Leroy Duncan. High level fight. High level striking fight. A really good one that I'm incredibly looking forward to. Cesar Almeida, former WGP kickboxing, I believe he was a tournament champion, maybe a world champion, but he did fight for Glory Kickboxing as well, way back in the day. He's fought some good guys. Donovan Weiss, definitely a notable name, but an even more notable name that he has fought is probably Alex Bahia. He fought for against Alex Bahia 3 times, lost 1-2 in a trilogy against Alex Bahia. High level striker this fella is, man, and honestly, against Lucas Fernando, he showed off some grappling and wrestling, and most of the fight was grappling and wrestling. It was such a crazy fight, completely unexpected for Cesar Almeida. And this is going to be a striking fight, because I don't see Christian Leroy Duncan going for takedowns. I don't see him going for grappling. He didn't really wrestle too much against Armin Petrosian, even though he was getting his legs chewed up. And honestly, he was swinging and missing. He was just looking a little bit silly against Armin Petrosian. Armin Petrosian outclassed him. I did pick CLD in that fight. I was a CLD believer. I thought he looked really slick against Dusko Todorovic before the injury, so we didn't have a big sample size in the UFC. But he did have a bit on Cage Warriors. Christian Leroy Duncan is the real deal, and for a middleweight is an incredibly skilled fighter. But I'm going to pick Cesar Almeida. As soon as this fight was made, I was like, yep, this is a fight Cesar Almeida can win. You've got to trust me on this one, guys. I know we didn't see that much striking on his Dana White's Contender Series fight. If you're going to trust me on one thing, trust me on the fact that Cesar Almeida is a really good striker. He is really good at striking. I saw it on the very limited tape I was able to see before Dana White's Contender Series, and I did pick Lucas Fernando. I thought Fernando was going to be able to out-wrestle him and out-grapple him. Fernando himself thought he was going to be able to out-wrestle and out-grapple him. Cesar Almeida, behind the scenes, man, must be going absolutely ham in the grappling training. It's unreal. I think Almeida can get this one done, man. I think he's going to be the better striker, the more composed striker. He's an underdog as well, plus 110, CLD minus 130. I don't hate it, man. I think Almeida can get it done. Now we can move on to Uros Medic taking on Jonny Parsons. What a fight this one is, man. This is going to be a fun fight. Jonny Parsons again. I'm not that sold on Jonny Parsons. Now, Uros Medic, I believe he fought at 155. He did. And then he moved up to 170. Looked pretty good against Matt Semmelsberger. Got the KO there pretty early on in the fight there. Jonny Parsons, a guy who I think is just a little bit small for 170, but he struggled to make the weight. In his last fight, he had to get the box. He did not look good, or maybe he didn't need the box, but he looked incredibly drained on the scale at 170. I was like, man, and like he's pretty small for the weight class and just couldn't really make the weight. But it was his first fight in about 2 years. You know, he beat Solomon Renfro, a fight that could have gone Renfro's way, and now Renfro has gone on to have mad success in the PFL. So good for Renfro. Good win, good looking win now for Jonny Parsons as well in hindsight, right? Knocks out Danny Roberts. I picked Danny Roberts in that fight. I mean, there's so many fights on this card where I'm looking at these fights like, man, I got these guys' fights wrong. Oh, but no, Danny Roberts. I thought Danny Roberts was going to get it done over Jonny Parsons. Parsons is a Muay Thai fighter. I believe he was dealing with like concussion issues and some injuries for a while, which is why he didn't fight for ages. I believe he's a striking coach at Syndicate MMA as well. I think Uros Medic gets it done though, man. Like Medic is an interesting fighter, right? Because he's had so much success in the UFC, but he can make some fight IQ blunders. He can get a little bit overly aggressive. He does seem, I don't know, man. It just seems like he's still developing as a fighter, despite going very well in the UFC so far. 3-1 run over some pretty good fighters, you know. I don't know, man. Uros Medic, definitely a guy to keep your eye on for in the future. It seems like he's still developing and getting better over time. If you look at the odds, Medic is minus 240, Parsons is plus 200 or so. I mean, Parsons might crash as another massive underdog, but I've got to go with Medic in this fight. I think he can get it done by KO as well, as the Tapology votes are indicating. Now we've got Amanda Ribas taking on Luana Pinheiro. I think Amanda Ribas can win this one here. I'm just waiting for it to load. Here we go. So we got Amanda Ribas versus Pinheiro. I wasn't that sold. I didn't think Pinheiro looked that good when she took on Michelle Waterson, to be honest with you guys. Amanda Ribas, a very aggressive fighter. That's what she does. Incredibly aggressive on the feet, incredibly aggressive on the ground, incredibly aggressive with the wrestling and the grappling. Sorry, just checking my my messages there. But no, I think Ribas can get it done, you know. Pinheiro, I'm still not that sold on her. She does have the judo base. She is a grappler for the most part, but I didn't think she looked good against Michelle Waterson. I thought she won that fight against Waterson. But man, she just hasn't really been beating the best girls, has she? And the thing about Randa Marcos is she wasn't looking that good against Randa Marcos until she kind of milked that situation there. Very good finisher is Pinheiro, though. I believe she's got like a lot of KOs on her record if you do look into it. And she does a lot of submissions, my bad. Judo base for Pinheiro. But I think Ribas is going to be the better grappler and the better striker. I mean, Ribas has been in there with some of the best in the world. She did get KO'd by Macy Barber, which is a shame, but she beat Araujo. She lost a very close fight to Jeka, which could have gone either way. Beat Jandaroba, well-aged win there. I think Ribas has this one, man. I think Ribas has this fight. I'm really bad at picking women's MMA. We've got a minus 300 favourite in Ribas. I mean, I've got to go with Ribas. I think she gets it done. 70% of people on Tapology are picking her as well. Give me Ribas to win a scrappy decision. Payton Talbot versus Nick Aguirre. I'm all over Payton Talbot, man. I think that Payton Talbot truly has incredible upside. If you are a fan of Sean O'Malley, you're going to be a fan of Payton Talbot. He fights almost identically, well, not really. Like, he fights a little bit differently, but you can see a lot of similarity in them. Not only just in fighting style, but in appearance, kind of in personality, kind of. Very similar fighters. I think Payton Talbot has opportunity himself to become a superstar. I mean, he's a striker. He likes to take one to give one. He can get taken down relatively easily, but he showed incredible takedown defense on Contender Series. Before that, though, when he was fighting on the regional scene, this guy was getting taken down all the time, but he was standing straight back up, and he was landing bombs. He's a powerful striker, really good striker. Went to war on the Contender Series. He's back quick kind of turnaround over Nick Aguirre. Nick Aguirre, though, honestly, is actually a pretty bad stylistic matchup for Talbot because he's a grappler and a wrestler. But in my opinion, I just don't see Nick Aguirre being a good enough grappler to get Payton Talbot down to the ground. So I think that we see Talbot get it done over Aguirre. Aguirre is a bantamweight. He took on a short notice fight against Dan Aguirre, upper weight class at 145, which is why his last fight was at featherweight. But aside from that as well, he really hadn't fought anyone that great, and even then, his 4-2 opponent was his best opponent. If you watch that, it looks like they're kind of like fighting in like a gym or something. You can see the basketball lines and stuff. Just interesting location for a fight. I mean, I guess a lot of regional shows are like that, but it looks like they're fighting in a school gymnasium. That's kind of where I was getting at. It was odd. Odd situation. Lost to Dan Aguirre. Happens, to be honest with you, got out wrestled there in his own game against a guy that was bigger than him. But Talbot, though, I think Talbot knocks him out. Talbot's a really good striker, man. He's got KO power. He does get hit a little bit. He does get taken down quite a bit, except for on the Contender Series. So maybe that takedown defense is getting better. But where is Talbot here on the odd list? Because I think he's going to get it done. I'm pretty confident in him. I mean, the odds are minus 600 for Payton Talbot. Okay, and Nick Aguirre's plus 400. Unbeatable line. Honestly, I'm very confident Talbot gets it done, but this at the end of the day, he's making his debut against a guy that is genuinely a bad stylistic matchup for him because Aguirre is a wrestler. So let's see how that goes. Jordan Levitt versus Chase Hooper. Oh man, I didn't even come in ready for a pick for this fight. It's just one of those fights. I've got to go Jordan Levitt though, man. I'm just not sold on Chase Hooper. But I said that about him against Nick Fiore. I picked Nick Fiore in that fight. That's probably the worst pick I've ever picked in my entire life. Nick Fiore looked like he didn't know what he was doing against Chase Hooper. He made Chase Hooper look like he was a good striker. How does stuff like this happen? How does stuff like this happen? I mean, Jordan Levitt recently got his first KO, I believe, like the first time in a long time ago with Victor Martinez, which is cool. But we know that Levitt's not really a striker. He's a grappler. Chase Hooper's a grappler. Hooper's got this very odd karate style, but he's not a good enough striker to pull it off. It's just very awkward. I think on the feet, Levitt should be able to give Hooper problems. Should be the key word. I mean, Hooper just doesn't impress me on the feet, man. Like, he does try and pull off this Wonder Boy karate style, but in my opinion, it's probably the worst thing that they could have really had for him. Because to pull off that karate style with that side sort of stance as a striker in MMA, you've got to be a really, really good striker, and Chase Hooper just doesn't pull it off well. On the grappling, Jordan Levitt's really good. I mean, he did lose to Paddy Pimblett, which hasn't aged that well, but, you know, before that he beat Trey Ogden. He beat Machado. I mean, like, come on. Hindsight, Levitt doesn't really have any great wins, does he? But he should be able to beat Hooper. I'm going to go Levitt in this fight. I'm assuming the odds are relatively close. Jordan Levitt's plus 200. Okay. I'm missing something. For sure. I'm picking Jordan Levitt as a plus 200 underdog. How does that even happen? Low confidence pick, but that's madness, man. They've got Jake Matthews versus Michael Morales. I'm assuming the odds for this are probably absolutely insane as well. No, Morales is minus 250. How does this even happen? How is Payton's Halbert a minus 600 favorite, and Morales is minus 250 with that kind of reasoning? It doesn't make sense. I'm gonna go with Morales here. I think that for Michael Morales, Jake Matthews is a better matchup stylistically than Max Griffin, because Max Griffin did give him a lot of trouble, and he did expose some weaknesses in Michael Morales. But the thing about Michael Morales is he's 24 years old. He's got time to figure these sort of things out. It's not like he's a 30-year-old prospect where he needs to get in the top 15 right now. He has time, and the UFC is going to build him up slowly. Now, Jake Matthews is going to be a big test for him, though, because Jake Matthews is a really good grappler. Seems to be a little bit more obsessed with his striking recently, but can strike. Is a pretty good striker when he wants to be. Like, sometimes he looks incredible. He looks really good against Andre Fialho. I know that's Andre Fialho, but he looks really good against Fialho after a bit of a layoff. And then he lost against Matthew Samuelsberger, and I thought he looked really bad in that fight. And then he beat Darius Flowers. Darius Flowers is a lightweight that took that fight on short notice, so that happens. I mean, I think Michael Morales can get it done on the feet, though. The thing about Morales, though, when he makes, is he's got some pretty bad habits. He likes to kind of throw a combination or kind of do an exchange, and then he'll drop his hands and reset and wait. So that gives opportunities to the opponent. If you watch his fight, especially against Max Griffin, it's super obvious. He just spends time where his hands are by his waist, and he's just resetting. And it's kind of frustrating to watch, to be honest with you, but I think Morales goes out there. I think he beats Matthews. Morales is a really good wrestler, really good striker. I think he can mix it up to beat Matthews. I mean, he shouldn't get the fight down to the ground. I think his takedown defense should be it. And then we move on to Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. This is a fight where, honestly, for Brendan Allen, he probably shouldn't go for takedowns. I mean, a lot of the guys that he fights, it's kind of like, yeah, he should grapple. But the thing about... apologies. The thing about his fight against Andre Muniz looked really good in the striking against Brendan Allen, but Brendan Allen looks really good in the grappling against Andre Muniz. That's a fight that just doesn't make sense, to be honest with you. Then he beat Bruno Silva, but he submitted Bruno Silva, and unfortunately for Bruno Silva, everyone gets submitted by Bruno Silva, so that is what it is, really, to be honest with you. But I think that we see him beat Paul Craig. Now, Paul Craig went out there and submitted Andre Muniz, finished him with ground and pound over Andre Muniz in a grappling situation. Very good 185 pounds debut for Paul Craig. I thought he looked pretty good. He didn't look insanely massive for 185 for the weight class either. Like, he did look really big, but he didn't look unbelievably big. And he probably will look bigger than Brendan Allen, to be fair, at 185. But on the feet, Allen is going to be the better striker. We should be. I mean, he didn't look that good on the feet against Andre Muniz, tell you that much. But he should be good enough to beat Paul Craig in the striking. He should be good enough to defend the takedowns. He should be able to survive grappling situations he gets put on them. I'm going with Allen here. I mean, Craig's been finished by Caio before a couple of times, I believe, in his career. Allen's minus 300. Those odds, in my opinion, are also a little bit too wide. I'm going to go with Allen, though. I think he gets it done. I think he gets it done by finish. I'm starting to lose my voice. It's 2 a.m. in the morning, so my voice just doesn't want to speak right now. So I'm going to end the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll be uploading a lot in the week, so let me know, and I'll see you guys later.